There's a scene that plays out in thousands of homes every single night. The baby cries for the third time that night. The parents haven't slept in days. And at some point, exhausted, one of them whispers, "Let's just bring him into bed with us, just for tonight." The baby calms down. The parents finally rest. And for a few minutes, it feels like everything finally makes sense. But sleeping with your baby in your bed, even when it feels like the most natural thing in the world, can lead to serious consequences that most parents have never really stopped to think about. And this isn't about love. It isn't about care. It isn't about instinct. It's about understanding what's actually happening in that bed while everyone is asleep. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Before anything else, it's important to separate two situations that often get mixed up, and that make all the difference in this conversation. There's bed sharing, when the baby sleeps in the same bed as the parents, sharing the mattress, the pillow, the comforter. And there's room sharing, when the baby sleeps in their own crib, on their own surface, but in the same room. These two situations sound almost identical. In practice, they're worlds apart. One of them is recommended by the leading health authorities in the world. The other is exactly the one that raises the red flag. And it's easy to see why so many parents confuse the two. The desire to keep your baby close is the same. The exhaustion at 3 a.m. is the same. The instinct to protect them is the same. But the physical setup behind each choice changes absolutely everything. The first thing that needs to be clear is that a newborn baby isn't just a smaller version of an adult. Their body works in a completely different way from ours, especially in the first few months. Their neck doesn't have the strength to turn their head if something covers their face. Their breathing muscles are still developing. Their arousal reflexes, those mechanisms that wake us up when something's wrong, are still immature. And a baby's brain spends a huge portion of sleep in very deep states, which they have a hard time pulling themselves out of. All of this means one thing. Situations that are completely harmless for an adult can be dangerous for a small baby. A soft pillow, a heavier comforter, a loose sheet that wraps around, another person's body right next to them. Things we don't even notice while we sleep can be exactly what puts the baby at risk. And here's the point most parents never stop to think about. An adult's bed was designed for an adult, not for a baby. And this is where the science starts to enter the conversation in a really interesting way. Because for a long time, sleeping with the baby was treated as a cultural thing, a personal choice, a family tradition. Every family did it their own way, and nobody really questioned it. But starting in the 1990s, researchers around the world began to look at this practice with different eyes. They started collecting data, following families, investigating cases, and what they found completely changed the way modern medicine looks at infant sleep. It wasn't a single study. It was a series of research projects in different countries, with different methodologies, all pointing in the same direction. And it was that convergence, the fact that independent researchers on different continents were reaching similar conclusions, that led the major pediatric associations to revisit their recommendations. What we know today about shared sleep is a lot more solid than what we knew 30 years ago. And that knowledge is exactly what's going to help you make the best possible decision about your baby's nights. So let's get into the data. In 2013, a researcher named Robert Carpenter, along with an international team, published one of the largest analyses ever done on this topic. They pulled together information from 5 different studies, conducted in multiple countries, and looked at over 1,400 real cases of babies who experienced serious complications during sleep. The work was published in BMJ Open, one of the most respected medical journals in the world, and what they wanted to find out was simple. When a baby sleeps in the same bed as the parents, does the risk actually go up? By how much? And in which situations? The answer was clear, and it was uncomfortable. Even in families where the parents didn't drink alcohol, didn't smoke, weren't taking sleep medications, even in families where the baby was exclusively breastfed, even in the situations parents themselves considered the safest. The risk of serious complications in babies under 3 months old was still significantly higher than in babies who slept in a crib. It wasn't a risk equal to families with major aggravating factors, but it also wasn't low enough to ignore. And that was the big turning point in the scientific conversation. Following these studies, and many others that came after, the leading medical associations in the world started taking a much firmer position. The American Academy of Pediatrics, which is one of the global authorities on this issue, now recommends that the baby sleep in the same room as the parents for at least the first 6 months of life, ideally up to a year, but on a separate surface, a crib, a bassinet, a bedside sleeper attached to the parent's bed, never inside the bed itself. And this recommendation isn't based on opinion. It isn't based on tradition. It isn't based on guesswork. It's based on decades of research observing thousands of families in different countries, with different cultures and different sleep habits. The conclusion has been consistent enough that the recommendation has been maintained and reinforced over the years. But there's a question that's probably still floating around in your head, a question every mom and every dad asks at this point in the conversation. If science shows that sleeping with your baby in your bed comes with real risks, why on earth does our instinct push us to do exactly that? To understand why instinct asks for one thing and science points to another, we need to take a quick trip back in time. Picture, just for a moment, a mother 200,000 years ago, somewhere on the African continent. She's just had a baby. There's no house. There's no bedroom. There's no crib. There's nothing remotely like the environment babies sleep in today. What there is the ground. Some leaves, maybe an animal hide, the warmth of the mother's body, and a night full of sounds that might be real danger. In that setting, the baby has to be glued to the mother, not as a preference, not as comfort, but as an absolute survival necessity. If the baby drifts away, he gets cold. If he gets cold, he doesn't make it. If he makes noise on his own, he attracts predators. If the mother can't feel his body all night long, she can't protect him. And it was in that setting, repeated over thousands and thousands of generations, that maternal instinct and infant instinct were carved. So when you feel that pull to grab your baby and put them right next to you in bed, that impulse isn't weakness. It isn't spoiling them. It isn't a lack of discipline. It's a 200,000-year-old biological program running inside of you, doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that this program was written for a setting that doesn't exist anymore. Our ancestor out on the savannah didn't have a memory foam mattress. She didn't have a down comforter. She didn't have a tall pillow. Her body, lying on the hard ground next to her baby, was basically a safe extension of the womb, a firm surface, a warmth regulated by her own skin, with nothing that could cover the baby's face, nothing that could sink, nothing that could trap. What we call a bed today, that comfortable place where we sleep, is a relatively recent invention, and it was designed for the comfort of adults, not for the safety of babies, so the instinct is right. The desire to keep your baby close is right. What's wrong is the stage where that instinct is being played out. And that's exactly why the scientific recommendation today doesn't ask you to give up closeness. It asks you to rearrange the stage. A crib pushed up against your bed, a bassinet right next to the mother, a bedside sleeper that attaches to the parent's bed. All of that preserves the smell, the sound, the presence. Everything your baby needs to feel safe, everything your body needs to feel connected, but on a surface that was designed for their size, their weight, their fragility. You're not choosing between love and safety. You're choosing the smartest way to give them both at the same time. And maybe that's the biggest shift in this whole conversation. Realizing that the best night of sleep your baby can have isn't the one where they're inside your bed, it's the one where they're close to you, the right way, in the right place.